Welcome to Bari Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon. I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Well, what do we call this? Our second episode. I don't know any other languages to kind of put it into words.
Dos episodi.
What is it? Knee episode. Amazing response to our first episode. I must say, overwhelmed.
Very overwhelmed. I can't believe the feedback. Like, it was quite scary putting it out there, but we got great feedback so far.
I wasn't expecting that response, and my favorite thing was people felt like they were eavesdropping into our conversation.
Or we were in the shower with somebody at one point in time.
I need to whisper to you. So
or like we're in the back seat of your car, guys.
Yeah. So it's our first ever guest today too. Like, round of applause.
Well done to us.
I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, so it did take a little bit to get set.
Just a little bit. It's only been like an hour.
My vein is pulsating on the side of my head. We
got there though. We've got it connected. We're ready to go.
Yeah, we can hear each other. It's all set up. We're good to go. Your week. How's it been?
It's been a week. Let's just put it far. But we made it to the weekend, so I'm super happy. I heard you had a bit of an adventure this week.
I did. I got told I had to put this into my soundtrack. Branch, apparently branch.
Not the whole tree. The branch.
No, I feel like a tree, like a whole tree would have been. It was a branch, just a little branch. I ran into it. Yeah, I was running through. I'm taking up this thing called trail running. Trail. Yeah. And I was running through a trail, and I was so busy trying not to trip over.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you'd think that the injury from being trail running would be, falling over and hurting your ankle.
Yeah,
not smacking into a tree. Trees are pretty, big and there.
That was a branch. Again, it was a branch. But yeah, it happens. Lesson learned. Look up, Shannon. Look up. Forward. I guess now's a good opportunity.
Let's stop talking about you being clumsy. And
I know, we can go there. So our guest on our first ever episode, it makes sense that this is our guest because she was someone that's definitely been the lighter to my fire, someone that's influenced me into the path I've taken because, I met her and I was kind of like crazy girl. We'll go into that deeper, but it's no one rather than, Elle. Elle, our Princess Elle.
Princess Elle, Elle's journey to good health with all the underscores.
With all the underscores, yeah. So Elle, I guess we give her the introduction. 5 years out from surgery, she's done 10 triathlons, 5 full Ironmans. We'll go into that a little bit more. I think you can take the rest.
She's done 5 half Ironman, and she's also made it to Kona, which is the World Championships of Ironman. We're just going to bring her up on the screen here. And hey, Elle, can you hear us?
Hey, Elle, how are you?
I can. Hey.
So Elle, 5 full Ironman. So that's the Nutrigrain thing, isn't it?
No,
it's not the Nutrigrain thing. So tell us a little bit about what Ironman involves.
Yeah, so Ironman is it's over one full day. It involves a 3.8k swim, 180 kilometer bike ride, and a 42.2k run. All in one day, one after the other, non-stop. Until you get to that finish line.
So for those who don't know, like a 42.2 kilometer run is a marathon. So Elle does a marathon after spending, a good couple of hours out there on a bike and swimming.
Yeah, about six hours on the bike, maybe a bit more, and swimming.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I had a chat to you once before and I was like, hey, Elle, have you ever done a marathon? And you're like, you've never done a marathon.
Your answer was, I've done it on the back of a swim and a bike ride.
180k bike ride. I guess we could start this off by just saying how we met. I met Elle, obviously, and we met Elle through Lauren. Lauren introduced. She was kind of like, hey, there's this Elle girl. I really feel like you should connect with her. And then she showed me your profile. I went across and I was like, okay, this girl is actually insane. I love it. Also, you're very big in the women in tri. That's a big thing for Elle. She's very good at introducing people to triathlon. Being the little, the gateway drug into the wonderful world that is triathlon. You kind of started off at 184 kilos, Elle, pre-surgery.
Yeah.
You know, what was the big thing that made you want to have surgery in the first place?
Yeah, I think I didn't realize that I was as heavy as what I was. I kind of thought maybe 100, 120 kilos, but when I had to hop on those scales and we found out my actual weight, and then things kind of just started to decline from there. You know, we found out my actual weight, and then my sleep apnea started to come to a head. You know, I had my driver's license taken off me.
Wow.
Those sort of things really started to come crashing down, and I just kind of felt like the world around me was kind of just crashing down.
Yeah.
So I felt like I'd hit rock bottom, and I just needed to build my way up from there. And you know, I tried to lose weight many times previously, but my food addiction just got in the way of that.
Why did they take your driver's license off you? Like, what was the reason behind that?
Because, yeah, the oxygen levels in my blood would drop to really, because I'd stop breathing while I'm sleeping, and the oxygen in my blood was dropping to really dangerous levels. So I wasn't actually getting any sleep, and so they were worried that I was going to fall asleep behind the wheel.
Wow, that's insane. That actually is crazy.
So talk us through it. You're at the doctor's surgery. You've jumped on the scales and you've tipped over. I think you've told us before that you actually got an error sign and you had to jump on another set of scales. Obviously, you've come to the realization that you need to do something to change your life. Bariatric surgery came into it. What was your biggest fear? Like, what was it that you were kind of like, all right, I'm scared about doing this?
Yeah, you know what? For me, it was probably failure. I was so worried that this surgery is nothing to take lightly. Like there's so many things that could go wrong, but my biggest fear was that if I did take the step to have the surgery and I went through that, if I failed and just ended up bigger than what I was when I first started, because I've seen that happen, you know.
Is that mainly because it was your final, like, you know, as I said in the first episode, for me, it was my last chance, my last kind of opportunity. It was kind of like, this was it, you know, last kind of shot. Was that what it was for you? You just didn't want to fail because there was no other option after that?
Yeah, 100%. Because I'd tried other things. I'd tried gym. I'd tried everything. I tried every fad diet in the world. I swear, I've spent so much money on them and none of them work. So yeah.
Well, it's safe to say that it's clearly worked for you now, because
you think? Yeah.
Not only, like, your first goal going into surgery was like, so for those of you who don't know, Elle was on this time last year, and you pledged to
next year.
This time.
Next year.
Sorry, yeah, this time next year.
Next year.
Clearly,
not last year.
This time last year.
Yeah. I can predict that last year I will.
Clearly, I don't watch much TV.
Yeah,
but you pledged to Carl that you were going to do a triathlon. So your goal was to physically just do one triathlon. Clearly, you've gone above and beyond that.
Yeah. So what was it? Standard? Was it Enticer? What kind of triathlon was it that you were trying to do for your first triathlon?
Yeah, it was an Enticer distance.
And what's the Enticer distance?
Yeah, it was a 250-meter swim, a 5K bike, and a 2.5K run. And I actually did that at 170 kilos. So it was just after surgery.
So how far out of surgery? Like, were you still in like puree stage or something like that when you did this crazy thing?
She's literally like still got the stitches in. She's like, I'm out, I'm swimming.
She's got the little, what's it called, the cannula in her arm, and she's running down the road.
I'm not going to put it past Elle, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, how long after surgery was it?
It was probably about a month to 2 months after surgery.
Wow. Like,
I started training 4 weeks after surgery. I started training for it.
Had you ever trained for anything like this before? Like, did you just like have a surgery and go, what's the most epic thing that I can do for myself after surgery? You know, I'm not even going to properly recover. I'm going to just do a triathlon. Like,
yeah, didn't you know that was the fifth stage? It goes soft food triathlon. Yeah.
Have you ever done anything like this before?
No, so I used to be a swimmer. Obviously, when I was in school, I used to swim before I was larger. Then I stopped swimming stop being active and put weight on. So when I knew that triathlon was going to be it, I wanted it to be it because when I was a swimmer, I trained with other triathletes, and I thought they were just these epic people who, like, who does 3 sports in one? That's just crazy. And as a swimmer, I physically could not do it. I was swim fit, but I wasn't run and ride fit. And so I just thought that these people were just like the pinnacle, and that's what I wanted to be. So, yeah, that's why I chose
that was going to be one of my questions, and be like, you know, you would the lighter to my fire.
The lighter?
I feel like it's a song in that. You were kind of like
light my fire.
You were the spark to my fire. And I was going to ask you, who was yours? Like, who was the person? Or was it just a bunch of people, like you're saying? Like,
or was it just a crazy epiphany that you one day had?
You know what? I get asked this a lot, and I don't and haven't had anyone who has inspired me to do this sport. I just wanted to do it for myself.
So you woke up
and then when I
and just went, I want to do it.
Accomplishing things, I inspired myself with what I've done. That makes sense.
That's so cool.
It is, because you went in TISA and then, you know, you've done 10 standard distance triathlons.
So what's a standard distance for those who don't know?
So a standard distance is oh God, I haven't done one for a while.
It's a 1K swim, isn't it? 1K swim?
Yeah.
30K
I think
bike
it's about
ride.
1K.
Shannon would know. I think
it's 1K, 30K bike ride, and it's a 10K run. Yeah, we did the Bari Island one, and that was a little bit different, so it's kind of.
Yeah, but you did Mooloolaba.
Yeah, Mooloolaba. Yeah, I don't know. You just kind of put your head down, butt up, and you just go for it, don't you? You just go, when it's done, it's done. You'd feel like that with Ironman, I feel like. It would just be like...
Wait, what's the distance?
Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, that's getting like that.
So obviously, being a bariatric patient as well as a triathlete, I get asked this question a lot, and I don't know much about it because I'm very new into both worlds, so to speak. How do you sort of plan and fuel for your races? Like, how do you... Like, a lot of athletes say, you know, the night beforehand they carb load. We can't just sit down and eat a massive bowl of pasta the night beforehand. So, like, what do you do?
Yeah, so what a lot of people don't realise is that there's so many different ways of getting carb intake in, and fluid is one of them. So you can drink your carbs. So I use hydration fuel, and the days in the lead up to a big race like an Ironman, I will be having extra of my hydration fuel. A lot of athletes do have that prior to an event anyway, but I'll just have a little bit more than what a normal person will have. And that's filled with carbs and everything that your body will need to get you through a race. And because I get asked this a lot as well, I actually get a lot of bariatric patients message me and say, I couldn't do that sort of race because I can't eat much. And I'm like, well, neither can I.
Yeah, totally.
But it's possible. It's possible because we can still have fluids if we're just sipping at them and we're really like strict with it. We can do it. You know, and not just those sort of things, but gels as well have a really high concentrate of carbohydrates. But then there's also like a whole bunch of other roads you can go down to with fat adaptation and that sort of thing, but I'm not going to get into that.
No, totally.
It's just another floodgate.
Yeah, this is one thing we've definitely talked about a lot, because we are very much, we don't want to share with the bariatric community kind of like what we eat and stuff like that. It's one thing we kind of stay away because it's very different. It's very different.
So tailored
like,
to each person.
Every time Elle and I sit down and we have a conversation about, you know, fat adaptation and different concepts like that, we kind of, we're still discovering it. I think there's no black and white method to what's going to work, especially with endurance, because it's kind of uncharted. Like, I've been sitting down lately, obviously, with the trip coming up, trying to talk to nutritionists and trying to find a happy medium between a nutritionist, a sports nutritionist, and a bariatric nutritionist.
So if anyone knows of a bariatric sports nutritionist, send them our way.
Like it's in between the two, because you know, like, and that's one thing, like, what we eat isn't a bariatric diet anymore. Like, especially I know with Elle, we don't eat like bariatric patients anymore.
No.
You know, it's definitely gone on, because I definitely got to a point where I was eating a weight loss diet but exercising like an athlete. And then I'll do more harm than good, because you literally, if you're not fueling right, you're burning muscle. You're pretty much setting yourself back. rather than forward. And it's something Elle and I talk about, and there's no, like, Elle's still tampering with it. I'm tampering with it. It's definitely something that we're still playing with, seeing what works for us. And yeah, because I get that all the time. You would as well. Can you share more days on the plate and stuff like that? And it's not really that straightforward, because it's like it can vary day to day depending on what you have on your plate exercise wise as well. So
most important thing is protein, though. Doesn't matter what phase you're in, you've got to eat your protein.
Yeah, you got to get your protein intake in, because you want your muscles to rebuild and do what they have to do. But yeah, it's not black and white, and I think that's one thing. You've got to find what works for you. Even nutritionists will usually tell you that. You've got to find something that works for you.
Your proudest moment, I get goosebumps every time I hear this story. Talk us through what you would say is your proudest moment so far.
Yeah, so the finish line of Ironman World Championships back in 2018, I was privileged to have the opportunity to race Ironman World Championships over in Kona, Hawaii, which is a race that not everybody gets to do. It's a race that has to be earned. It's something that you have to be invited to. So for me, with my journey and all of that, to have been invited to race in Hawaii, and just to be able to race in Hawaii itself really is just an incredible moment. And that moment for me, crossing that finish line, because that race, the lead up to that finish line, is the toughest race that I've done to this date. It's just been one of the hardest things mentally for me to get through that race and to make it to that finish line. And then
what time
wheelchair.
The blister story, I've heard it so many times, and it just every time
we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
we'll come back to that,
insane.
because that is like, I adore that story. Every time Elle tells it, I'm like, I love it.
And it's almost kind of like, and I think back to it anytime that I'm out somewhere, like, doing a run, and I'm like, Alita, you're at like 10Ks. I'm like, just think of Elle with her blisters. So you can tell that story in a minute. But like, so you started, we're at Kona, we're in Hawaii, you're on the start line, you're about to start to get in the water. What time is it that what time in the morning did you start the race?
It would have been about 6 a.m. over in Hawaii.
And I have here that you finished at 11:24 p.m. and that you specifically remember that time. Like, so that's a bloody long time to be out exercising.
That's a bloody long time to be doing anything.
Like, that's more time that I would spend at work. Like, I only work an 8-hour day, if that. Like, I'm pretty lucky I only really work 6 hours a day, but we don't need to go into that.
Yeah.
Like, you were out there competing for longer than what most of us spend working. Like, talk us through that. What were you thinking? What were you doing? How did you keep on going? Like,
how's the mental process when you're out there? Like, are you just kind of like, just keep moving?
You just ride the waves. It comes in waves. So generally the swim I get through fine and I'm okay. I get out of the swim, I'm fine. And then it usually starts at maybe about 40 Ks into the bike ride, and you're like, oh, I'm not even really halfway yet. And I'm starting to hurt, and there's a bit of wind, and these hills are killing me, and you start to find yourself talking yourself into this real dark place. And I think the key is to know that that's what you're doing, and then change that mindset. And so I literally talk to myself. I'll be like on the bike, and I'll be having these bad thoughts in my head, and then I'll be like out loud, no, Elle, you are not in pain.
Yeah.
Just think about that finish line and that medal that you're going to get at the end.
Yeah. No.
So you kind of just ride the waves, and you know when it's happening. You can tell, I'll start crying on the bike because I'm in so much pain, especially in the back end of the bike. And then it's really tough going from the 180K bike, hopping off the bike with tired legs, and knowing that you have a full marathon ahead of you.
Full marathon.
That's insane, because it's like it's a small percentage of people in the world that have completed a marathon. And I think that really puts it into perspective that, like, you're doing a lot before
it's
you
really
do a
funny
marathon.
because I don't really ever have a desire to do a marathon. Like, I'm like, that's a long time to be out. Why would you want to run for that long? That's a long time. But then there's people like you who just you've never done a marathon, yet you just pop it on the end of the rest of your day. Like, what?
And I think that's one of the big things. I watched the documentary Iron Mind, and it goes into like the mindset of someone that does an Ironman, and how like usually there is a lot of like there's trauma, there's things in the past that have happened that they use as fuel throughout an Ironman. You know, it's not just. I feel like it's not something that someone just goes, I'm gonna go out and do an Ironman purely because you will be in discomfort for a very long time.
Do you find that certain things from your past come up whilst you're out
fuel
there?
you? Like, what's in your
fuel you? Yeah.
What's in your cookie jar? We talked about that last time. It's kind of like
don't say his name.
I'm not going to say his name because I have to pay you $1 if I say his name. But in your cookie jar, so like, what's at the top of your thing when you're getting to that point where you just can't go on? Like, you know, we'll go to the blister story in a second. But like, what is the thing that's at your cookie jar that makes you keep going?
Do you know what? It's my family. I've always, my whole life, have wanted my parents to be proud of me, and now they really, really are. And so just knowing that they're there waiting for me to finish, and I don't want them to worry about me, because my mum worries. Like, she thinks I'm just going to drop dead on the course, and I don't want her to. So I just know that they're watching, and they're watching that app, and every time I go through a checkpoint, when I can hear the buzzer go off as I ride through it, I know that Mum will be a little bit relieved knowing that I've made it to that next checkpoint.
And you just hope that buzzer actually goes off.
Kind of
yeah. No, totally. No, that's impressive. Another thing that someone actually brought up with me is addiction transfer. Do you feel like you have transferred your addiction to something else? What would be your, like my addiction I talked about last week is I'm addicted to accomplishment. I'm addicted to that feeling of accomplishment. What would you say your addiction is now?
I think so too. I'm addicted to that feeling of accomplishment. I wouldn't say that my food addiction has completely disappeared. I don't think I'll ever say that my food addiction has disappeared, but I definitely can say that I know that I have it under control, and I know that it is a problem and it's still sitting there. So as long as I know that, and as long as I'm willing to say that, I'll be okay. But it's when I start to hide that addiction again, that will be a problem. But I do think that I am really addicted to that sense of accomplishment, of crossing a finish line, but doing bigger and bigger things. Like, I just want to do bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
We will get onto that because there is a very big thing you're leading up to. But another thing, I guess,
we need, hang on, before we go on, we have to hear the blister story.
Yeah, let's put it on.
Because we've said it, we've talked about it a few times, and I can see us getting off topic shortly. So tell us your blister story.
It's just too much. Elle has too much. It's just like, I'm a mind going.
Tell us your blister story.
Yeah, so hop off the bike, 180 k's on the bike, hop into the run.
Where are you? This is set the scene.
In Kona, Hawaii. In Hawaii.
Okay.
In Hawaii. So
out
on the lava fields, which is where we run, which is very hot. And there were some lovely locals who, about 5 k's into the run, squirt me with water to cool me down. But it went into my shoes. So I started at that point to form blisters. But then it was about probably maybe 10 k's into the run, 10 to 15 k's into the run, and the skies just opened up and it bucketed down. Like, it literally just dropped water, and it didn't stop. It just kept raining like that for at least the next 20 to 30 k's until I got back into Kona. And so with all the rain and then the water that had come into my shoes earlier in the race, the blisters that started to form on the bottom of my feet were so bad. I could barely touch them. I couldn't touch my feet. My whole feet, when I sat down on a curb to take my shoes off just to rub my feet, and my feet were shaking in pain. That's how bad they were. And I sat there and I'm like, I don't know if I can continue. I don't think I can. And I was crying. I literally had my head in my hands because I was disappointed. And then I'm like, nah, put them back on. Mum and Dad are watching the app and they would be worried about me. I
can't let blisters be the end of me.
Yeah. No, it was the app. It was the app. And it is a big thing for Elle. It's like she, knowing that her parents would see her sitting on the side of the road for that long. And I totally get that. My mum would be out there and she'd be running like, where is he? I need to find him.
So you've put your shoes back on. You've grinned and bared it. You've put your shoes back on. You're going, come on, Elle. They're just blisters.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And it was a run walk and a really bad hobble. But, before I knew it, I could hear, you are an Ironman. And I'm like,
Stop.
oh my gosh, I'm in Hawaii and I'm going to hear that. I'm actually going to hear it. It's not cut off yet. I'm going to hear it. Just keep going. Mum's going to be proud of me. She'll see me on the video. So
I love it.
yeah, and then before I knew it, I was entering the red carpet, and all the flags of the entire world were just lined up, and I could put my arms out either side and just touch the flags as I ran down, and
Yes.
I just burst into tears to the point I couldn't keep running because I was just crying, like ugly crying, but I managed to compose myself when I got to the actual finish line as I crossed over. But yeah, and then I was put in a wheelchair because I couldn't walk.
See, I love that story because, as I said, there's been so many times throughout my life, be it, running 5 kilometers, which is nothing compared to your Ironman, but like, excuse me, there's been so many times where I've literally been just kind of like, Alita, if Elle can get halfway through a marathon and still get up with blisters on her feet,
and finish
it, you can do anything in life. Like, I think that's why I respect your journey so much, because there's so many people who just, you are the person who you've proved that anything literally is possible.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. Like, it's kind of like on the scale of L to, because you have achieved so much. And I think that leads into, like, that's why we are, and we talk about it all the time, is the stigma behind it. Because I feel like people really discredit what you've achieved based on what, weight loss surgery. And that, I think that as much as it as much as I want to do it for me, and like as much as we strive to break that stigma, Elle's a massive one, because like I've seen it on countless occasions where people have discredited her.
Well, they almost roll their eyes when you say, I had weight loss surgery, and they look at you and you're, that's why.
Yeah, like even the other day, where someone was like, giving her flack because it wasn't in her bio and stuff like that. And I talked to someone about that this morning. I'm like, yeah, but why do you need to put it in your bio? Like, there comes a point, she's 5 years out.
Yeah.
You can't, it'd be like, yeah, but, you're a neurosurgeon. You went to Harvard, that doesn't really, I'm going to discredit what you are now, but based on, something else that you did 5 years ago.
For me, I always say, because, like, I don't very often talk about the amount of weight that I've lost anymore. It's just a number to me. It doesn't really define who I am as a person. But I always say that the first 30 kilos that I lost was, assisted by weight loss surgery.
Totally.
The rest of it has been because of my lifestyle. So do you find that you get, like, you don't put it out there necessarily on the forefront that you have had bariatric surgery? Did you cop a lot of flack in the triathlon world because of it?
Yeah, in the triathlon world, I did, yes, because there's so many people out there who don't understand the surgery, and some people are still under the assumption that it's just where they remove all of your fat in one surgery and then you're all of a sudden.
They think it's like liposuction.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, but they don't want to listen to you when you try and correct them.
Yeah.
They just don't want to hear it. But you know what? It's also other larger people who maybe haven't had surgery before, who maybe have tried to do it without surgery and possibly failed. I feel like they seem to be the worst when it comes to criticism and that sort of stuff about what I have achieved. And I do really get worked up about it because some of them have said to me that, I've only done Ironman because I had weight loss surgery. And yes, it's been part of my journey, but weight loss surgery didn't get me up at 4 a.m. every day, to do ridiculous amounts of training. And and what people don't see, people see the glory of the finish line, but what they don't see is the 6 months in the lead up of every single day worth of training. I do up to 20 to 25 hours a week just of training. That's on top of work and other commitments. So it's like a commitment within itself. There's been so many opportunities that I've had to pass up to have parties with friends and barbecues, and because I just can't, because if I do, I won't wake up the next day to get the training done that I need to get done. So it's a huge commitment.
I'll never forget
not just physically,
but was it mid-year?
Mid-year,
You came and you hung out with us beforehand, and we all got dolled up and everything together, and I had a few drinks prior to the party. Yeah, me having drinks or what?
No,
we wouldn't
you've
know.
never.
And I just remember, like, I never judged you for it or anything like that, but you were just so. I wish I had the self-control that you did, because, like, literally I was like, do you just want to have one? And I think you might have had one drink, and I was like, how on earth do you stop at one vodka soda? And you're like,
I know, this
because
self-control. What is this self-control thing? I don't
get it.
No.
Because then you were like, oh no, it's fine. Like, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna be part of the party and I'm gonna see everybody, but I've got to get up at 4:00 in the morning to spend 6 hours on Barbie
bike,
at that, or Barbie or Kona, whoever it was. And I just that dedication doesn't come from having sleep surgery. Like, that's the part that people don't understand. Like, there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you had the surgery to assist you to get the weight off, but it's the drive and the determination and the self-control and the diets and everything that you follow after that just it's
well, that is because, like, even like the story that I was going to mention was obviously when I had that article done up about the triathlon down in Bari Banter and stuff like that, and an extended family member made a comment of like, wow, it's amazing what happens when you cut out 8/10 or cut out your stomach. And then I saw that, and usually I just bite my tongue, but I was kind of put a comment down, and I was like, wow, who knew cutting out your stomach makes you get up at 4:00 in the morning to train? I should have done this earlier. Like, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, who knew? Added benefits of having your stomach cut out, right? Yeah.
But that's what people think. It's so
crazy.
frustrating.
And it is. So you can't devalue what you've done. Honestly, Elle, like, you are an incredible human being. Like, to do 10 triathlons, I'm looking at this, needs to be 5 for line. It's insane. And like 5, I love that, like, down the bottom, 5 half Ironman. Like, I'm working to do a half Ironman. You've done 5 of them. Like, this is in 5 years. You have to be proud of yourself, right? Like, you have to sit back and be like,
are your parents proud of you, like you mentioned
before?
100%.
Yeah, they are. 100%. They are. They're starting to worry a bit though, because I just keep upping the distances. And my mum now, when I tell her what I'm doing, she's just like, why? Why? I don't understand. You don't need to do this.
Yeah, so I guess that leads us into, I guess you better mention what's on the cards for Elle, because we like to see where everyone's heading. What is next for Elle?
It's pretty big news,
well,
though,
I know you've got Ironman. We've got another Ironman. I love that we just fobbed the Ironman.
We don't need to mention that there's another Ironman coming up in, a month or something, but...
The juicy
one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What's the big juicy one?
Okay, Elle, you're doing another Ironman. Well done, number 6. Like, there's nothing to take away from. But, like, what is the next big thing for Elle?
Yeah, so Ultraman.
I just keep stepping up.
Like double an Ironman, basically.
Double Ironman. Over 3 days,
It's over 3 days. It's not just 1 day, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you just got 3 days worth of punishment rather than 1.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to just be out there for 1 day. I want to be out there for 3 consecutive days.
Yeah, I feel like I need you to start making it now. Like, what's bigger than ultra? Like, extra ultra.
Eco.
Eco. Oh, the Eco Challenge.
The Eco Challenge, which she wants to do in
2022. That's next level as well. But yeah, like Elle, like, incredible. But I guess coming back to, what would you go back and tell past you prior to surgery that would just help put your mind at ease and guide you through this process?
Because obviously you've become quite an epic person. There's no doubting that. But like before all of this happened and before you turned into a triathlete, because there's a lot of people who are listening to this right now who they've said to us like, oh, you're just going to keep on, interviewing people who are very into sports and that sort of thing. But like
we all start somewhere.
We all start somewhere.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, Elle hasn't got where she's got now because she just went done. You know what I mean? Like,
what would you, Elle that was at 184 kilos, what would you say to yourself now if you could?
Yeah, well, so obviously I was really worried about failure. That was my biggest problem. And so that was a real driving factor into, I nearly didn't have surgery for that reason. So I think if I could go back and say anything to old me is don't let that be a fear, because regardless of what is going to happen on your road to get there and what you're going to end up doing, this surgery is going to save your life. As long as you do what you are supposed to do to make it work properly and you use it as the tool that it is,
trust the process.
You will 100% be a different person and start actually living your life.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
I know that, Elle, like, we met you very on in the piece, and I'll never forget, you had just swam like 2 kilometers in Lullaby, and we thought that you were absolutely crazy. 6 months after meeting you, we were doing a triathlon as a team. So we have to give you props for being like, I never even thought that I could run further than 100 meters, let alone I've done a triathlon now and stuff. So, like, definitely you have been such a supporting and influencing person in my journey.
Totally.
And I'm sure there's other people out there who look at you and just, not that they, like, people don't need to go and do triathlons
No.
and Ironman, but just seeing where you've come from,
What's possible,
and where you are now, like, anything literally is possible. And I just really hope that people embrace your journey for that. Like, as I said, you don't need to go and do a triathlon,
no,
but just, think of Elle and her blisters, and if it makes you go to the gym for half an hour, you know what I mean? Like, your story.
I think it's more about setting your big goal, like something that for you seems almost unattainable, but something that you've always wanted to do, and then having the drive to go out and do it. So it doesn't need to be Ironman. It could just be to do a 10K run or a 5K run,
or to
something
lift
that
120 kilos.
Yeah,
or
it could
anything.
be literally anything. If you're willing to put in the work, and I think that's what comes down to it. Like, Elle does work very hard, like very, very hard, and the proof's in the pudding. She's doing these events, she's smashing goals, and because she has that purpose, she has something that she wants to work towards, and she's out to just make her mum and dad proud. Yeah, and I love it. Elle, you literally are the emphasis of inspiration within the bariatric community. You are someone in the normal world, in any world, you are an inspiration. You are someone that I definitely look up to, someone that I'm very grateful that has come into my journey. And yeah, I honestly thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for being our guinea pig as well, and being our first ever guest.
Yeah, so about the tech issues.
That's okay. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, and I feel
almost special.
All the best for your Ironman
Team
in a
Elle.
month, like Team Crazy, Team Elle, and then we'll be right by your side for Ultraman next year. So can't wait to see what's
I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited to have you guys on my team.
Oh, 100%, totally. I can't wait to be on your team. I can't wait to be have my pink tutu on and encourage you in any way I can.
Nutrition where we can.
Yeah,
mullet. Oh, I don't know. I can be swayed. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, Elle, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Elle.
And we'll be training again very soon together. Anyway, Alita, thank you for joining me. Thank you, Elle, for joining me. That is another episode of Bari Banter. Thanks for tuning into Bari Banter. Join us again next week where we start to delve into the lives of your fellow bariatric patients.
And who knows, you might learn a thing or two.
Or 3.